you finished your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, I'd like to come back. And Artie, I'm Terrence Moore. He's Artie Jones, for those of you all who walked in late. But in any event, as we mentioned a little while ago, the principal purpose of his presentation is to offer a background and tutorial relative to the tax allocation district and how that is applicable for our interest and vision here for College Park, Georgia. So I appreciate your enthusiasm, Randy, asking where do we start, and I kind of answered that question a little while ago, but I'll go into the details. But from here on out, between now and the next 45, 50 minutes or so, we will open up the floor for questions. And this is an opportunity for you all to address any low-hanging fruit opportunities as well as any questions related to the long-term vision. I jumped back up here because my role tonight, above and beyond the presentation we've made thus far, is really to serve as facilitator, because we'll deflect and pivot to the individuals who are here representing city administration, and we introduced those individuals before. So, on that note, Artie, I'm sure there will be opportunities for you to address specific questions that may arise. But let's go ahead and begin with you, Randy, since you jumped out of your coat and out of your skin a little bit, asking about when do we start. There's a microphone coming around, so thank you. Please.
Well, would you like me? I had a couple of comments I wanted to just make kind of along with Artie's. And I just wanted to, for those people that don't know a whole lot about the TOD plan, that the Indigo development that he mentioned is a perfect example of why we have to integrate the TOD plan into our zoning, because that piece of property is a jigsaw puzzle of different ownership, different zoning, different FAA restrictions, and it was not able to be developed as the TOD plan envisioned because of all the various things that were happening. So one of the things that we've been talking about is to be able to translate the TOD into zoning so that the TOD plan can actually be implemented like it's shown. So I think that was an important fact. And the other thing I wanted to mention about taxation, we just went to the Main Street Conference in Decatur, and one of the biggest things that they said was that there's almost nothing in terms of tax base that is more in terms of dollars per square foot than a central business district. It's not industrial, it's not malls, it's not anything residential, but the central business district is the highest tax dollars per square foot. So I just want to make sure that everyone in the city council understands that information that we learned that was so valuable in the Main Street Conference, and a great incentive to bring in that type of development as opposed to warehouses or other things that may happen on the periphery of the central business district.
Very well. Thank you, Randy Zaig.
Thank you.
We'll allow us the opportunity. Before we take your questions, sir, I'd like to answer Randy's question, Mr. Zaig's question, relative to where do we go from here. So in the early part of the presentation, before Artie's dialogue, I talked about February 2nd, going before Durham City Council in the workshop meeting, to offer some initial thoughts and considerations relative to the next steps. So again, we wanted to outline the approach, outline the vision, and more importantly, we feel that we've come up with a specific tool to help us to get to where we wish to be, where a lot of people have expressed an interest in for a number of years in terms of where we need to be. So a lot of what you talked about in your written correspondence, Mr. Zaid, along the research and direction we've been able to assemble thus far. So it's a constantly evolving process, and that does require leadership on part of elected officials, appointed officials, the community at large, but it's a continuous process to begin as a result. So thank you for that. So that's the next step. Sir.
My name is Don Shoemaker. I've lived here since '87. Do we have a master plan?
As far as the redevelopment plan that Artie talked about in his presentation, no, you have several different individual components.
Okay, are any of those plans here tonight so that people who have never seen it can see it? Get to see some of them?
Yes, we actually have copies of the transit-oriented development plan that was done a few years ago, but we were deliberate in not talking about that, if I may, as far as a full-blown presentation, because there's other work that needs to be done as far as an overall redevelopment plan in order to get to a place of introducing the tax allocation district. So that's one component of several, but we do have copies of that available. We have citizenry who've made that documentation available, as well as our planning representative that has that information available.
I think I can explain one thing that would be helpful. the LCI plan, the TOD built on the LCI plan, and all of these refer to each other as adding to the one previous. So they're not a bunch of random ideas that are floating out there. Each one is a building block on the other, along with the design guidelines. So all of those, and it's discussed in the text of the TOD, that it started with the LCI, it built it with the TOD, and talked about how it was supposed to be incorporated into the
There's a
zoning.
lot of people here tonight
Yeah.
that have no earthly idea what any of these plans look like.
I understand that, and it sounds like they're going to have a mechanism to deal with that, and just where everybody can really see, what's going on. I just want to make sure.
When we get behind you, you need to show them what your thoughts are,
Right.
what your studies have shown so far.
If I may, Mr. Zayac, sir, a couple points of clarification. First of all, the LCI having that particular piece in place, the City of College Park enjoys opportunities for matching grants, et cetera, to get to that place, number one. Number two, if you were to go to City of College Park, and this is a good announcement because this is being televised, et cetera, City of College Park website under the economic development icons, these documents and plans are available for all the world to see. So that does become available for anybody who has a specific interest in that regard. So again, the principal purpose tonight is to mention that we have to come up with something more broad ranging, if you will, so that we can proceed with the tax allocation district. And so yes, we do request people to get behind it because it's a definitive, tried and true tool to help us get to a better place. But it is available, and we're working to be even more transparent about it as we go along.
Terrence.
Yes, sir. John Redd.
John Redd. I agree that there's a need for a longer-term plan, a comprehensive plan. However, there are some things that probably need to be addressed more immediately.
Yes, sir.
Just simply we have a blight from Columbia to Harvard.
Yes, sir.
We have poor lighting. Mentioning the city website, I tried to pull up the design review guidelines. Doesn't work. Design review guidelines, we don't have a design review board.
Yes, sir.
It's kind of like, what can we do now? Starting now, over the next 1, 2, and 3 years, at the same time, we look for a long-term plan.
Yes, sir.
We have to do both.
Yes, sir.
Not one
That's
or
correct.
the other.
Agreed. And if I may, John Redd, that's part of the February 2nd engagement. Gerald, actually, the lady who's behind Bo Kelsey was actually next, and then you would be next.
Thank you.
Yes, you can, sir. And February 2nd will be offering consideration to that effect as well. That will be part of the package. Councilman White.
I want to talk about the lighting issue in specific.
Thank you.
And I understand today there was some things going on with that.
Absolutely, today the
Can
lights
you
were
sort of
installed.
help us out with the lighting issue? Because that's something that I got behind. I think we made tremendous progress, some progress on the lighting situation. If you just brief them on the lighting situation.
Good evening. Actually, if you walk out tonight, when you leave tonight, you should actually be able to see there are lighting that were installed on Harvard and Main, actually everything along Main Street up until Princeton. I don't know if they completed today because I was in a meeting, but I know that they started at Harvard and Main. They placed a new lighting pole at the corner of Harvard on the side of the railroad track where we had a lighting post, but it did not illuminate enough. And then they also placed another lighting right beyond the depot in the middle of Main Street. So when you go out tonight, you should be able to see the increased lighting.
I want to look at it, but we also have overhanging awnings that block the lights. We also have empty stores that a year, 2 years ago, they were at least illuminated at night. Stores are not illuminated. Overhanging awnings cover the lights. So it's not a pleasant walk to go from the historic or the Pecan up to the Corner Grill or to Tony Moro's.
Yes, and the lighting that was placed, Mr. Witt, those lighting are actually much higher. They are not the height of the normal street pole. They are way higher and cast over. So I want you to please walk tonight, and I want you to call me tomorrow and let me know what you think.
Take a look and give it a chance.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
You can't hide the awnings, you're gonna shade this thing.
I think it's my turn. I'm sorry. I'll be very brief, I promise.
Please.
I'm Nicole Adams, and I live on Rugby Circle, and I've lived here for almost 18 years, and I appreciate hearing about the tax allocation district. You can't live here and not understand what's happened in East Point, whether you choose or not choose to be serviced over there. I appreciate that, but if you want this community behind your tax allocation district, something that I'm aware of and I support, I suggest you put together a primer and a timeline, talking about dates and things that are going to happen in the future for those of us who work in this community but are not here quite a bit. It would be helpful to see a 6-month snapshot. And now I'd like for you to tell me why this time is going to be different from any of the other times I've heard about over the past 18 years.
That's a great question, ma'am. And what you're
I'm
talking
glad.
about as far as the timetable and that's part of the package. That's my commentary regarding the February 2nd. Pardon me?
I'm getting a package to take with me tonight, or?
I don't mean that specific document. I'm talking about the evolution of where we go in this regard.
Oh, an evolutionary package, okay.
Yes, ma'am, if I may, and that's what's required in all fairness. So I appreciate your direct question relative to why is it different now versus previous times.
Sure.
Again, people like myself, Artie and others, we've been on board for a relatively short time in the community, so we really got to work to assess where we need to go. In my mind, professionally, city management standpoint, public finance standpoint, urban planning, economic development standpoint, it's simple. Because we are now coming forward with the consideration of a specific tool. That specific tool is the tax allocation district. As far as I can tell, there hasn't been much energy or momentum regarding the application of that tool before. Answering your question as to why it would be different. Well, we have something concrete and specific to work with that's been tried and true in many communities, been very successful. I myself and other experiences in different parts of the country as a career city manager, success with tax increment financing. So when coming on board in 2013 into College Park, Georgia, Metro Atlanta, et cetera, I'm wondering about that. And so, okay, found out Terrence has actually called something a little bit different, tax allocation district, and it's pretty much the same approach. That's your concrete redevelopment tool and strategy being introduced. So I provided that consideration to Mayor and City Council. They've given us the unanimous direction to go ahead and proceed and take a look at it. So given the dialogue we've had with various members of the community, the Main Street Board, Virginia Avenue people, et cetera, we're now able to go forward with some opportunities in that regard. So to answer your question again succinctly, there hadn't been a lot of attention relative to that specific tool in the past. It is now something concrete to work with. There are a lot of moving parts haven't been already assembled well by the City of College Park. Our job now is to tie it together and get executed. A good reason for doing so is also the fact that there isn't a need for a referendum. We now have the ability, as long as we proceed with the process that Artie Jones outlined in his presentation. That's why I have a lot of faith in this particular process. And as long as I'm on board, I will do my utmost to bring us to the absolute best case possible.
If I could just ask one other quick follow-up question.
Ma'am.
Who is the team in place? Where's the accountability as far as the process and the fulfillment is concerned?
Various members of city administration. City Manager Terrence Moore, Director of Economic Development Artie Jones, College Park Main Street Manager Virginia Avenue as well, Iris Baxter, Director of Inspections, our planning firm, collaborative firm. Lauren Blasik is representing that organization tonight. She's here in the front, and others who will be assembled. Quite frankly, we may have to bring in some outside assistance to help us with compiling the actual plan for the requirements of a tax allocation district. The College Park Main Street Board is a group who will play a prominent role in that regard because they've assembled various visions and thoughts relative to where we need to be. We are directed to proceed with various discussions and dialogues with them. So 2015, the upcoming new year, 2015 I should say, is an opportunity to get some of all of these tools and techniques in place so that we can be at a better level.
Okay, well, I would appreciate seeing that as well as any milestones that are tied to a plan and the responsible parties.
The next concrete piece of information, ma'am, the February timeframe, working with Mayor and City Council at the workshop meeting, of which we'll come up with specifics, short-term and long-term. So a lot of the points you bring up, John Redd and Randy Zayek, in your written comments will go along those lines as well. So that's the next step, and I'm really proud to offer that background. Specific dates and a specific tool and strategy to get to that place, thus the confidence level and the enthusiasm to share. And we hope that you're with us in that regard. So thank you, ma'am. Those are very salient questions, and I appreciate them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who was next? Yes, ma'am. I believe it was you.
Hi, my name is Renee Curlin.
Pleasure.
Nice to meet you. I am curious about the difference. This gentleman is referring to the TOD. Is that identical, just a different acronym for Tax Allocation District? TOD, TAD, what's the difference?
Yes, ma'am. TOD stands for Transit-Oriented Development. In layman's terms, it is simply a planned development to encourage multiple-use transportation. In the case of our MARTA presence in College Park, so that ties into that particular development. Typically, the elements are mixed use, in our case, office, residential, commercial, to encourage mass transit usage. And so in major metropolitan areas of the country, like ours in Metro Atlanta, those types of developments are popping up so as to help reduce automobile traffic, so to speak. So there are specific requirements that are toned down relative to parking and other details. So that's transit-oriented development. That's the general application there. The tax allocation district, of course, is the redevelopment tool we talked about in Artie's presentation.
Maybe I can go ahead, at least for a while, and use the whole term,
Yes, ma'am.
phrase, rather than the acronyms.
Yep, and that's the consciousness I have as well. Tax allocation district, tax transit-oriented development. Councilman White, sir. Oh, very well. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please, Mr. Zayek, I'd like to give everyone the opportunity who have not yet spoken, and then we can circle back with everybody. So I believe it's Dr. Gully, then you, sir. Dr. Gully.
Terrence, just for my own clarification about tax allocation districts, are you all proposing one district that would incorporate both the downtown area and Virginia Avenue?
That's the initial
So it would be
consideration.
one, and to what extent do current property owners have to be, give their blessing to the tax allocation district? Can you impose it on them, as opposed to the CID where you have to have a majority of the business owners agreeing to it?
It's not, please.
So, because my concern would be if it requires the cooperation of current property owners who clearly haven't cared enough with the current arrangements that they have downtown and Virginia Avenue, then I'm not sure how this becomes a successful effort.
Good point, and fortunately, that's not the case. On that note, Artie, please help us out.
Set up the tax allocation district, you do not need the blessing from the property owners. At the same time, we're not sure of what the tax allocation district would look like, if it would include Virginia Avenue, if it would include Main Street.
Our focus and our initial consideration involves those areas. Yes, it does.
But yeah, that's how, the thing about it is that you can have multiple tax allocation districts within a city, so long as it's not over 10% of the gross value of the property within the city that's within the tax allocation districts. Just like the city of Atlanta, they have 10 tax allocation districts, and they can't have any more unless they annex more property into the city.
It's not an imposition. It's not like the owners are going to be paying more taxes. What it does, it takes the increment above the base, when you set the baseline, and it diverts that money to the improvement of the infrastructure in the area. That's why you need the approval of the county, because you're taking their piece of that increment, and you need the approval of the school district because you're taking their piece of that, correct?
Correct. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So the salient response is not an imposition, and the authority lies with this approach.
So as a follow-up, it's clear to me that the College Park City and Council, I guess, are in favor of this, given their presence tonight and the favorable comments we've heard. So what do we know about the county and the Board of Education's position on this?
Part of this, we're getting together in February to talk about the next steps, and part of the direction is to go ahead and proceed. Our follow-up will be with leadership of both organizations as we engage the necessary redevelopment plan approach, offer education to that effect. We have a good working relationship with them. There's not a reason at this time to think they'll be adversarial about it. So we offer our enthusiasm and we go about that process. And again, this is not new to Fulton County or the Fulton County schools. They've actually made authorizations to this effect in other parts of the world. So they have a past practice in place. A precedent has been set. Now it's time for the City of College Park to come forward respectively. Thank you. Sir.
I'm Paul Dorn. I've been in College Park since 1972. And I've been to so many of these meetings I couldn't even recount them. I own 3 buildings unencumbered on Main Street in the blighted district between Harvard and Columbia. I have 11 tenants. I live in a loft above the Harvard and Main Street. There's an immediate solution to the blight between Harvard and Columbia that doesn't need a plan, doesn't need a vote, doesn't need anything. It's already on the books. Inspection department can issue a citation for a blighted building. And if the owner does not take care of it, the inspection department has the authority to go in and clean it up themselves. The problem is there's no money. And all of this stuff is wonderful. Looks good on paper, but where's the money? And without money, none of this means anything.
The money, and that's exactly right. That's what I said when I first joined the organization back in 2013. Where's the money? Thus the merits for the tax allocation district. The establishment of a tax allocation district is how you get the money. And I think Artie covered that pretty well in his presentation. My enthusiastic comments before and after, that's the tool to get us to that place. Another reason, getting to the lady's question as to why is it different this time, because we've identified a tool that's applicable to help us get to that place, sir. That's why it's worth our time, energy, and effort.
But is the city going to front any money?
Sir, I think Councilman Clay explained it pretty well. Once the district is established, it comes from that approach. That's the city's role and responsibility in establishing the funding. It's just a redistribution of proceeds for that particular area.
But you don't have the money until you have somebody paying taxes.
That's already in place, sir. That's already in place. It's just a restructuring based on the explanations having been provided before. And with the redevelopment plan component, it's just a matter of authorizing it, akin to the budget process every year. So this is how you get your money, sir.
Well, you're basically saying you get a bond based on the future tax revenue.
That's a potential opportunity. That's correct.
That's where the money
what
comes
he's talking
from.
about.
They float a bond.
That's correct.
It's
And
paid
that's how you
back by
get
the
it.
extra
And
tax.
speaking of money, MARTA is very interested in this, and
And
they're
we're-
going to help with the process too.
Mr. Zayek, if I may please, we're following up with Marta as well. We'd like to give everyone else an opportunity. Let's see.
Aaron?
Tom Carpenter, you're next.
Okay.
Sir.
Just a quick comment.
Sir.
The TOD, Transit Orient Development Study, encompasses only a 1/4 mile radius around the MARTA station.
Sir.
Okay, that gives everyone an idea of the geography here.
We're talking transit-oriented development, not tax allocation district.
Right.
Thank you, sir. Let's see. Actually, those folks in the back, the lady and then the gentleman, then back here to Monty. Ma'am.
Good evening, everyone. Stacy Alexander. I heard you mention and make example to the Atlantic Station as an example of a tax allocation. I also heard you mention that Main Street in Virginia were the sole purposes or focus at first, with Old National Highway being a major business thoroughfare, as well as all of the businesses and the Delta employees, Cisco employees, and all of the employees over in what we call Ward 4, Riverdale and Global Gateway. When is that area also considered for some of the tax allocation with reference to the businesses coming, that the plans that you're making?
Yes, ma'am. Good question, because right now the focus, Artie in his comments talked a little bit about the criteria, 10% or under for tax allocation district application. So one particular focus, of course, Main Street in Virginia. Another focus would be the Old National vicinity, because we feel that that's an area that can perform better than it has, and it probably qualifies for that approach as well. So at this point in time, we are simply working to get this in place. Once it is in place, we can make it applicable to other areas of the community deemed appropriate, and that would be a particular focus. So that would be forthcoming. Sir.
I'm Alan Gravitt. I'd like to sort of back up some of the things that are said. Many of us have been here for many, many years, and we've gone through charrettes and plans and all this sort of thing, and we've seen nothing. And a couple of specific questions. Number one, is it possible to have a single individual who is responsible for guiding this through, making sure that they understand the requirements that are in place by the airport and other such things? Number two, is there, I saw a stack of letters that were sent to Main Street buildings that had problems, and nothing had been done to follow up on that apparently. So can we have a person who is charged with being in charge? And number two, are we having problems enforcing the code in the downtown area?
Okay. First part of the question, is there one specific point person? Generally, no. It's a team-oriented approach. However, the city manager's office, speaking in second person, plays a principal role in making sure leadership and guidance is executed now that we have the tools and techniques we're looking at to get to that place. So on that note, I would offer responsibility in that regard. As far as the enforcement issues and concerns you talked about, of course, we have Iris Baxter, Main Street Manager, who is responsible for that level of communication. And third, as far as the piece on enforcement issues in that, we are, believe it or not, working more assertively in that regard. It's somewhat covert. And again, that's the direction we've asked Oscar Huston, Director of Inspections, to offer leadership and guidance on a day-to-day basis. So something I'd like for everybody to be mindful of. And obviously we're familiar with some of the more blatant examples of blight on any particular building, any particular setting of any particular corridor. And there's a legal process associated, of course, in getting to that place. But just as important as everything else we talked about, we really require the assistance and support on part of residents to bring matters to one's attention. I try to walk around as much as I possibly can myself, and I try to do whatever I possibly can to collaborate and get us to the absolute best place. Oftentimes people comment about me walking around. Terrence Moore walks around a lot, which I do. And I think that's good because it provides an opportunity for site assessment, etc. Quite frankly, although we've made some progress relative to corrective measures on particular buildings, one or two have been challenging. A big challenge, objectively speaking, believe it or not, is identifying the property owner. So you have a legal process to cite someone, to get them to respond to problems with the infrastructure, problems with the building, for instance. That's happened a number of times, per my observation since I've been here. And we've recently identified people finally who are responsible for buildings, absentee landlords, etc. So my request is to give us an opportunity to make that as successful as we possibly can. And likewise, we anticipate better success. So nowadays, we're being more assertive in identifying who the actors are, who the property owners are, who the responsible parties are. Whereas, was that the case necessarily before? I don't know. I cannot speak for it. I do not represent it at this time. But now that I do, as a stakeholder, a city manager, etc., we are working to do as much as we possibly can to get to that place. So, Director of Inspections, Oscar Hudson, Code Enforcement, they've been charged and directed accordingly. But objectively speaking, no fault of anybody in the city of College Park. These absentee landlords are something else. So the ones who are here, we've been easy to work with. Just last week in my office, we brought in a guy, the former J-Mix building, I think it was, Oscar, just a few days ago, this past Wednesday. And we talked to that individual about what was who and what's required. And now that we've identified this individual, we expect some momentum. So we're being more assertive in that regard. So therefore, I would request that everybody give us an opportunity to do our best respectively, and we hope for, or we are confident that we'll have better results because of it. Who is next?
Monty Evans.
Monty Evans, I know who you are.
2 parts. One, in regards to the gentleman's question over here, who said that the rules are in place as far as for blighted buildings that you all can enact
and go in and clean them up. Is that true or false?
Once again, the
gentleman-
specific building,
No, I'm saying the gentleman said that you all have rules on the books that say where you cited them and you've gotten no response, that the city has the authority to go in and clean them up. I'm asking, is that true or false?
it's true.
That is true on a safety measure. Yes, it is true.
From a
Okay.
safety standpoint, but above and beyond that, there's a whole level of legalese that must be engaged in order to get to that place. So, and that's my comment to Mr. Kravis in the back. Gravis, I'm sorry. You've hung out in my office a couple times, actually, yes. So in any event, to get to that place, there's a tremendous legal process that must be engaged. In terms of a safety situation, it's a little bit easier. We can be responsive quickly if there's something about the fall, something coming apart, whatever the case
I'm glad
might
you
be.
just said that, because
You can address that.
if you go down Main Street tonight, there's a whole glass
Yes.
missing in front of,
Upholstery store.
I'm meeting her tomorrow morning.
okay, but you do know the danger when you walk in. If someone got hurt tonight and jumped across that wall, there's some serious issues that could happen tonight in that space.
Yes, sir. I discussed that with the city manager last week and with Mr. Baxter.
You want to come up, please?
Yes, I discussed that thoroughly with the city manager and staff last week. We had the contractor to meet me this morning. He was a no-show. Ms. Banks contacted the owner, which is a young lady, but she moved out of her house. We had to find her. We found her, so she's coming in tomorrow to go over her building and get a contractor to fix the glass, plus the bottom area of that frontage to it.
Glass is gone.
Well, she said she was gonna get a contractor over there to pull the glass out. Oh, it'll be finished by Thursday.
If I may ask her just to cut to the quick. So okay, just a second, Artie. So we're working with the contractor this week. So we're looking for corrective action this week. In the event that something fails in that regard, we'll step up our efforts and go from there. We'll get involved more definitively. I've given authority to make that happen with Oscar. Artie, further?
In regards to that glass window, I believe there were contractors there earlier today. They saw the crack in it and everything. I believe they removed it because it would actually fall out and hurt someone. So they moved it out temporarily, and they're going to come back and fix it.
But it's open tonight. Oh, access to the building is there tonight.
It was just deliberately open because it's now a safer environment than what it previously had been. So that's the result of the efforts on part of the inspections department and Oscar Hudson and others. So let's give that a chance. I mean, we're talking this week to get that squared away. It's in their best interest to get it taken care of. Now that we've identified who they were via the process and answering your question, sir, to get to that place, it's a positive momentum. So this week, all else fails, we think we have some other options. So that's where we are. Step in the right direction.